Prepare your wallets as the Steam summer sale for this year has finally begun. Of course, it is going on until the 5th of July, so we've got quite a while to get these deals in. Now, as we've had in the last few Steam sales, they of course will have the same sales going on no matter what, but also we're going to have a different rotation of games on the front page each day, which is obviously good for discovering a lot of these games. Now, as always, I'm going to go through the highlights of what's on the main page. I'm not going to go through all of it because there is a ton, as well as perhaps a couple that you might have missed that because they aren't on the front page, but they are very much worth your time and money. So let's kick things off with Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy by Telltale. I will admit I haven't really played Telltale's last few offerings, as they do very much follow the same sort of formula, but if you do enjoy that formula, then well, why not sign yourself up for some Guardians themed action. It does have some pretty positive reviews, very positive recently and overall, but there isn't a huge amount of reviews, only 490 overall, and of course it came out back in April, but obviously these have been fairly niche games and I haven't really seen any mainstream coverage of it, so there is that as well, and obviously it is for the whole series as well. The actual price is 33% off, making it £12.72. Again, that is for the series itself, so not a bad deal. Perhaps if you're unsure if it's going to be different enough for you, if the Guardians theme is going to be enough to persuade you to delve once again into a Telltale game, then perhaps you might be better off waiting for future Steam sales, but it is a fairly nice reduction on a game that hasn't been out terribly long. Next up, however, is Grim Dawn. Now, if you want to see some gameplay of this, we do actually have a video of it on this very same channel. It is very much in the vein of Diablo. It is an ARPG. It has the potential for a ton of hours to be poured into. If you like your Diablo style games, if you like your Torchlight 2 or whatever, this game is definitely for you. Paul is the one who reviewed it for the channel, and he highly recommends this game, and at the price that it's at, you can't really argue with him or the gameplay that I've seen myself and played myself. It is definitely worth a lot of your attention. It is 50% off, making it $9.99, obviously a fair sight cheaper than Diablo 3 itself, but it is very much in that theme of game. So if you're after that sort of game but not Diablo, I would definitely say Grim Dawn is worth a look-see. Moving on to something quite different from the grim darkness of Grim Dawn, we have Abzu. Now this one is very much for those who prefer the story-based experience. This has been quite rightly described as Journey, but under the sea. It even has the same art director as Journey, and is that same sort of story-focused adventure where you immerse yourself under the sea and obviously get into more dangerous territory as you go further and further down. I haven't played this one myself, but I have heard nothing but good things about it, and I will say the game is absolutely stunning graphically. It is a gorgeous one, and calling it Journey Under the Sea is not an insult by any means, because while Journey was a really good game, and if Abzu can even be half as good as Journey, then it's definitely worth your time, especially at the reduced price. Now, the discount on this is pretty significant. It is 70% off, making it £4.49. I will say, however, just for your FYI, this has nothing to do with Abzu itself. The Steam store is getting absolutely hammered right now, so if a price isn't loading right for you, that's probably why. Only the front page is actually showing the incorrect Abzu price, so if perhaps the page I'm showing you right now doesn't look right, that's probably why. However, let's move on again to something a bit darker, from the nice bright world of Abzu to Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor. Of course, we are getting the sequel out this year, Shadow of War, and it looks like it very much expands the Nemesis system, which to be honest is one of the main factors that makes this game so unique. All in all, Shadow of Mordor should be really generic. It has all the sort of, open world features, TM, but in an interesting world with interesting characters, and obviously being able to sort of shape that world based upon your actions using the Nemesis system, and actually get a sort of grudges going on with the orcs, and actually be able to affect the world in real terms. You know, oh, you killed that orc, so a nastier orc than that one is now in power, or an orc that perhaps is not as strong is now in his position. And obviously you can just see the world reflecting your actions and showing the efforts that you're actually putting forth, and that's one of the things that really makes this game shine. And it is an absolute steal at the moment at 80% off, making it £3.19. If for some reason you haven't checked out this game, there is no reason not to at that cheap price. This game honestly is worth your cash. Let's move swiftly on, however, to Tyranny. This, of course, is a pretty sort of classic style, story-driven RPG, and this is a game where evil has already won. You're not the hero trying to stop the evil, you're someone who's trying to go and rank themselves up in the evil army. It's a sort of different spin on a fairly familiar formula at this point, and if you like this sort of old school style of RPG, it's definitely worth a look-see. It is 50% off for the Commander Edition, which is $18.99, and you have the Archon Edition for $19.99 as well. I will say, however, recently it does have mixed reviews, so there might be some sort of change that's been made to really sort of upset people. Obviously that's the reason behind showing recently and overall. Overall it does have very positive, but it is mixed at the moment, probably due to some patches or updates that have upset the community. So if I were you, I'd see if those changes actually bother you, but I would say if you're at all into any of Obsidian's other games that are like this, this is definitely worth your time. And I like the spin, like, oh, evil's already won, it's fine, you're in the evil army and you're just trying to be better at being evil. You want to be a commander, you want to get up there, you want to be the overlord even, you want to topple the guy on the throne, and perhaps you'll want to not be quite so evil but not be so good that perhaps people start giving you sidelong glances, that sort of thing. Has those sort of choices to be made within your actions and how you speak to people, that sort of thing. I would definitely recommend Tyranny. It is still fairly expensive, especially for the Steam sale, so perhaps if that's too costly for you, I don't really blame you. £19 is still fairly expensive, again in the Steam sale especially. That could be like, you know, 5 or 6 games if you're going really cheap, so perhaps it might be worth a wait till the Christmas sale for this one, but either way it is definitely worth your time. However, let's move on to Origami. Now this is for those that love their stealth, and also for those that love their very unique graphic style. I will say this game definitely gives me vibes of Okami. It isn't the same style by any means, but it definitely reminds me of it, and I love how the game looks. It has a very unique feel to it, and the mechanic of this game is basically that you can control shadows. You can teleport to any shadow and even summon stuff like a shadow dragon to dispose of your target. So obviously it has some very unique mechanics to go along with the unique graphic style as well. It is 50% off, making it £7.49, and while I'm not very good at stealth games, Origami is definitely one worth playing in, if I do say so myself. Next up is our first franchise offering with Final Fantasy. So I'm going to blast very quickly through this because we have a ton of games on offer and some not on offer. Final Fantasy Type 0 HD is 50% off, $9.99. The new expansion Stormblood for Final Fantasy 14 is unsurprisingly not on sale. We have Final Fantasy 13 Lightning Returns, 50% off, $6.49. Same for 13 2, and 13 itself is $5.49. We also have Final Fantasy 11 on here for 50% off, making it $12.49. The 10 and 10.2 HD Remaster Collection is also 50% off at $9.99. And we have 9 at $7.99, 8 at $4.99, 7 at $4.99 again, as well as 6 for $5.49, 5 for $5.50, and a Final Fantasy 4 bundle, which contains the game and the after years for $8.49, as well as Final Fantasy 3 at $5.49. Apologies, just had a bit of a frog in my throat there. So, let's move on to a game that is definitely a bit of a, this is kind of like, if it's on sale, buy it, and this is why I'm bringing it up, because it is heavily on sale, and it is none other than Mafia 3. I will say I did buy this when it came out at launch, and I was bitterly disappointed. it's got mixed reviews overall and recently, and there's good reason for it. I mean, it's not like it's broken or anything. It's fine, you know, it runs okay. It's got a ton of mods for it and stuff, but the issue with it is it's just very generic. There's very little special about it. The only thing that really separates this game from the absolute sea of open world action games like it is the setting, which is obviously 1968, and obviously you play as Lincoln Clay, a black character, and obviously in that particular time period he deals with a lot of racism and that sort of thing. And this is, you know, sort of post-Vietnam as well, so there's also that theme going through it. You know, this should have been a really great game with the setting. You know, the setting and the world are the most interesting parts. The actual gameplay isn't actually all that interesting, unfortunately, so it might be worth a shout at the current price. It's 63% off, making it $12.94. I absolutely would not spend full price on this, and I say that as someone who did spend full price on this. Maybe for the price, but I would say this is might even be one to wait for until it goes down to like £8 or something. But let's move on to another franchise, which is none other than Ghost Recon. So we have Wildlands is on sale here for 33% off, making it $26.79. I haven't played this one myself, but to be honest, all I've heard about this game is that it was bitterly disappointing. It's very generic, not very Ghost Recon, and not very strategic, which is, I would argue, is a key component of what makes Ghost Recon, well, Ghost Recon. So at that price, I would say it's a strong avoid. We do have Ghost Recon Future Soldier, however, that's 66% off at £4.07. Island Thunder is £1.18. And Desert Siege is also £1.18, as well as the original Ghost Recon, which came out in 2008, which just makes me feel really, really old. So, let's move on to Hyperlight Drifter. I will say I'm very tempted to pick this one up myself. I have been very much tempted to get this for a few times, because A, the graphics are very interesting and quite pretty, and obviously it's kind of touted as a Souls-like, with obviously, you know, a bit of bigger roguelike thrown in. And it is the roguelike stuff that kind of puts me off, and obviously it's a very difficult game, so it's going to be one of those ones that's an absolute time sink, but I've heard nothing but good things about it, especially as it now runs at 60 frames per second, which it did not at launch, as far as I understand, and it is very positively reviewed overall. I'd say if you're after a challenging experience, this one is definitely worth your time. But let's move on to another high-profile franchise with Call of Duty. I highly doubt this series needs much of an introduction, so I'm just going to get on with the prices. Black Ops 3 is still pretty expensive, in all honesty. It's 50% off, but it's still £19.99, which is a fair chunk of change in the Steam sale. We got World at War, which is $9.99, 50% off. Infinite Warfare is £20, 50% off. Ghosts is a strong avoid because it's only 34% off at $26.39. Black Ops 2 is £20, 50% off. And Modern Warfare 3 is $15. You got £10 for Modern Warfare 2, and the original is the same price, which is just like, what? And we also have the original Call of Duty for £7.50, as is Call of Duty 2. And our last front page offering, before we move on to my outside of the front page recommendations, we have Hollow Knight. Now, I have actually been playing this on the channel. I do have a playthrough of this going on right now, so if you want to see some gameplay of it, well, there's plenty there to choose from. It is very much a Metroidvania in the very pure sense of the word. There's no roguelike elements or anything like that. The only thing that even comes close to that is that when you die, you kind of drop your money, and you can just go back and get it where you died, kind of Dark Souls-ish. And if you die again before picking it up, then it does disappear, but it's not, money isn't that important in this game, and it's not like a huge deal to get it back, so it's not nearly as punishing as Dark Souls in terms of that, but it is a very difficult game. It is, you know, very much in the old school style of Castlevania, and the art style is absolutely stunning. I do love it, and the music is also fantastic. It's 34% off, making it $7.25. It's fairly cheap already at $10.99 full price, so I wasn't really expecting a hefty discount on this one, especially since it only came out back in February, but I would definitely say this is worth your time if you like this sort of thing. So those are pretty much the front page games. I'm just going to very quickly give you some other recommendations that are outside of the front page. And the first of which is Owlboy, which is 33% off at £12.72. Again, another Metroidvania style game, and the art is absolutely stunning. This was clearly painstaking. This took numerous years to make. It was delayed a lot of times as far as I understand, but you can kind of see why, because the game honestly is gorgeous. It is kind of a pixel art style, but in a way that, you know, the game looks gorgeous, and you could just tell someone was there just crying into their ramen noodles as they were making this. And it's just a very whimsical sort of world, as well as being very well animated, very nice to look at, and it's a sort of very whimsical adventure with, you know, obviously dangerous stuff in it as well. But it's definitely worth a look at, especially at this reduced price. Next up is one that I'm also playing at the moment. It's Darkest Dungeon. It's 60% off at $7.59. There was actually just some DLC released for this game, which obviously isn't on sale, considering it just came out maybe 2 days ago, and that itself is $6.99, so it's not exactly expensive. But the game itself, the actual base game, is 100% worth your cash at that cheap price. It is a game that I have poured far too many hours into as it is. It is a very challenging turn-based RPG, and it doesn't mess around. It's very sort of realistic about the psychological stresses of going into dungeons and dealing with Lovecraftian horrors on your heroes. And it has some roguelite elements in that when a hero dies, they die forever, but it's fairly easy to replace them when you've got enough upgrades going on. So it's not punishing in that way. It's punishing in that, you know, you can get pretty screwed over in the battles. It is a bit RNG, it is a bit dice roll, but that's never bothered me in this game where it bothered me in other games, because, well, it fits with the theme so well of, you know, making the best of a bad situation, which it very much is. And we're going to finish up with the game that, again, I've played a ton of, far too much of really, and that is Dark Souls 3. Which is 60% off at £15.99. I don't think this one needs any explanation. It is absolutely worth that price. And the deluxe edition, which comes with all the DLC, is only £30. So, what can I say? Overall, a strong offering for today. Obviously, as I said, there are going to be the same sales on throughout the sale, but I want to go through the highlights of each day, as I already said, unless, of course, a day is filled with games that I know nothing about, in which I will give that day a miss. But regardless, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.